The room was blue as folded silk. The pane kept one small star. A hush from tired twilight stayed about the things that are. My brushes waited in their jar, like guests who knew the hour. The floorboards held the night a while. The curtain breathed and bowed. Below, a magnolia moved so lightly in the air. Its fragrance climbed the narrow stair, as if to find me there. Then on the glass my silhouette grew pale and fine and thin, as though the morning entering had asked to be let in. Where the blue light went, something in me went also, not lost enough for grief to know. Where the blue light went, no footstep climbed the attic stair, no voice disturbed the room, yet every jar and silver tray seemed listening in the gloom. A teardrop gathered on the brush, then trembled into gleam. Not sorrow fit for any name, but sorrow near a dream. Outside the roofs were pearl and smoke. Inside the canvas bare began to hold a little more than emptiness and air. No serenade came up the stair, no radiant summons shone. But when the first faint gold appeared, I felt less left alone. For some things do not come as joy, nor leave as sorrows do. They only lay a tender hand upon the heart, then move. Where the blue light went, something in me went also, not lost enough for grief to know. Where the blue light went, the star went out upon the pane. The blue withdrew at last. I set one quiet color down and let the shadow pass. Yet long after the room grew bright and common morning stirred, my heart kept listening to that hue, like half-remembered words. ushers dim the aisle lights down. The organ tried a chord, and in the booth above the crowd, the second reel was stored. You stood beside the rewinder there, with film across your hand, a little lamp, a silver can, the picture yet unplanned. The children rustled paper bags, their mothers settled hats. A newsreel drum began below, with horses, flags and maps. Then one bright strip went loose and thin, a torn frame near the side. You caught it before the wheel could pull the afternoon too wide. You trimmed the edge with careful shears, then brushed the dust away, and laid the broken inches flat where all the shadows lay. The cement smelled of orange peel, the sprocket holes shone small, and when your thumb held down the seam, the booth forgot us all. I had come up to ask the time, or so I told myself. My ticket stub was folded twice and warming on the shelf. You did not turn, but softly said, "Hold still until it dries." And all the moving world below was waiting for your eyes.
One clear splice, one clear splice.
Nothing anyone would see when
faces filled the light. One clear splice.
Yet when the reel ran through, a broken moment crossed the screen, as if it always knew. I think of how the crowd below would never guess the place where one small tear was made to pass without a jump or trace. Some care is not a grand repair, not gold, not speech, not art. It simply joins what nearly failed and lets the story start.
One clear slice, one clear slice,
held between your patient hands before the matinee light.
One clear splice.
I saw it then and knew a life may keep its picture whole because of hands like you. The projector caught, the reel went round, the room below grew bright, and through that little mended place, the lovers crossed in white. Twilight had left the window glass, the cobblestone shone blue. A little bell gave one soft sigh and pulled the dark streets through. The velvet kept the carriage warm, the brass rail held the light. My silhouette beside the pane looked thinner in the night. One woman left with parcel string, one man with coat and cane, and all at once the city grew like fog upon the pane, the fog on the pane kept all the lost streets drifting by and made them softer to the eye, the fog on the pane. We passed the florist, shuttered down, the baker's darkened wall. A thread of starlight touched the wires above the midnight call. I had not meant to lift my head or let remembrance stay, yet every blurred and silver block looked half a world away. The bell grew small, the windows dim, a reverie came near. The city moved in light and smoke and left its hush in here. No serenade came through the car, no voice spoke out my name. Only the glass, the rails, the dark, the city just the same. And yet I knew some evenings keep what daylight cannot feign. A whole old life returns a while in fog upon the pane, the fog on the pane kept all the lost streets drifting by and made them softer to the eye, the fog on the pane. The tram moved on through sleeping blocks, the lamps grew faint and small. Still one last blur upon the glass, stay tender over all. Twilight rested on the frames, the lamp rehearsed its gold, the phonograph with patient grace unfastened from the cold. You did not ask me for the dance, you only crossed the room and drew my chair a little back, as if to lift the gloom. The velvet curtains kept the rain, the grate kept back the blue, and every little thing we owned grew hushed to look at you. Then when your fingers touched my sleeve, so lightly with a sigh. The years we never thought to name went quiet by and by. The evening learned your name from how you moved, not what you said. From lamplight on your silvered head, the evening learned your name. The teacups had gone pale with steam. The embers breathed in red. You smiled and said, my darling heart, the way you always said. No miracle had crossed the rug, no bright occasion shone, unless one counts the tender grace of never being alone. Outside the cobblestones were dim and silvered by the rain. Inside one little waltz began and made us young again. No grand serenade came down the stair, no trumpet split the air. But when your hand enclosed my own, I felt how love lives there. Not in the blaze that startles youth, nor vows that bloom and burn, but in the hush a whole room keeps for those who still return. The evening learned your name from how you moved, not what you said. From lamplight on your silvered head, the evening learned your name. The record thinned to whispered dust, the fire withdrew to rose. Still starlight lay across the rug in little afterglows. And long after the last note passed, and long after the rain grew tame, my heart kept moving through that room where evening learned your name. Twilight leaned on window glass, the embers breathed below. A phonograph began a waltz in little turns and slow. The velvet chair was moved aside, the supper things were done. You crossed the rug in slippered grace when all the day had run. Your silhouette in lamplight gold came softly into mine, and all at once the humble room grew tender by design, where the rug remembered our little waltz from long ago, and taught the quiet room to know where said, my darling, not too fast, so lightly with a smile, as if the years had only passed to bring us here a while. The phonograph gave out a sigh, the curtains held the blue, and every step across the floor felt old and somehow new. One thread of starlight touched the pane, one ember turned to gold, a reverie moved through the room, more dear for growing old. No serenade came through the street, no silver trumpet shone, only your hand within my sleeve when all the day was gone. And then I knew how love survives, not grand and not in flame, but in the way two faithful feet still answer to one name. Where the rug remembered our little waltz from long ago, and taught the quiet room to know. Where the rug remembered the record thinned, the lamp burned low, the embers gave their hue. Still on the rug our last small turn looked young enough for two. Twilight rests upon the frames, the wallpaper turns gold, a phonograph begins to breathe its little tale of old. You do not ask me for the dance, you only cross the room and draw my chair a little back, as if to lift the gloom. When the lamp grew small, your hand still found me sure and mild, and made the tired room reconciled. When the lamp grew small, the teacups pale beside the grate, the embers breathe in red. You murmur, darling, near my cheek, the way you always said. The window keeps one one silver star. The rug remembers grace. A little hush of reverie falls over time and place. No grand serenade fills the stair, no trumpet stirs the air. Yet in the light upon your sleeve, I feel how love lives there. When the lamp grew small, your hand still found me sure and mild, and made the tired room reconciled. When the lamp grew small, the record thins to whispered dust. The fire withdraws to rose. Still one soft measure lingers on, where only starlight knows. Past the ferry bell, the docks were taking shape. Crates of celery, newspapers, gulls in crooked flight. The ticket man had raised his shade. The river wore its workday gray, and all the town came down in shoes, still carrying last night. You missed one button at your wrist. Your hair was pinned in less than usual care, and standing by the painted post, you smiled as if the cold were nothing there. Half past the ferry bell, half past the ferry bell. That was the hour the morning nearly broke in two. No grand scene, no farewell speech, only the way I reached to fix the cuff you hurried through. Half past the ferry bell, with the first deck chain drawn well, and the smoke going pale above the piling slick with spray. I learned how quickly common hands may tremble for what might be swept away. A boy went by with milk cans clanging. Someone laughed beside a truck. The purser chalked the loading board. The mate called out a word of luck. You said the river looked unkind, too full, too fast for so early in the year. Then glanced once where the current took a crate from some forgotten pier. I took your glove from off the rail before the wind could turn it to the tide, and you grew quiet, not from cold, from something neither one of us described. Half past the ferry bell, half past the ferry bell. That was the hour the plain day altered in its frame. No vow spoken over water, only your face gone softer when I said your name. Half past the ferry bell, while the gangplank rose and fell, and the deckhands moved like men who had no time for fear. I learned how dear a life can look when one small loss comes near. Since then 100 mornings may have crossed, with cleaner skies and calmer boats than that. But memory keeps no weather by the book. It keeps the wet rope, the tilted hat, the wrong cuff, the glove upon the rail, the river shouldering past the pier, and how for one brief breath the whole wide day stood still because you were here. Now when a ferry bell comes thin through fog, it is not warning that I hear so well. It is your wrist beneath my hand, half past the ferry bell. By 7, all the stools were filled with caps, lunch pails and thread. A seamstress with her cuff still pinned, 2 brothers smelling faintly of bread. You wrote the date up in the corner, turned and tucked one strand away, then sounded out the longest word as if it wished to stay. The radiator knocked below, a cart went rattling through the square, and every letter on the board looked calmer for your care. You never laughed at halted mouths or hands that gripped too tight. You only tapped the margin once and brought the sentence right. My pencil split, you crossed the room and lent your knife to me, then laid the shavings in your palm as neatly as could be. The lamp made islands on the desks, the window dull to cold. You said again so quietly, it seemed to steady all the chalk on your palm, the chalk on your palm, white as the proof a hard thing can grow mild. You carried all evening's broken sounds and never made one feel like a child. The chalk on your palm, the chalk on your palm, I watched it shine when you lowered your hand, and thought there are some who teach the tongue, and some who teach a man to stand. Years may leave their sums unpaid, their rent due sharp, their winters long, yet one clear word correctly kept can set a crooked day less wrong. And what you brushed from off the board did not quite vanish with the line. It stayed upon your sleeve and skin, a little patience made visible. The chalk on your palm, the chalk on your palm, the chalk on your palm. After the copybooks closed and the last chair slid, you gathered the stubs in a tobacco tin like bits of faith from what the evening did. The chalk on your palm, the chalk on your palm. No jewel could have seemed half so fine, for I went down the darkened stairs with half your brightness on my mind. The grocer barred his lower door. The hallway smelled of apples and coal, and on the rail where your hand had passed, one pale mark rode with me home.
Twilight leaned on window panes. The cobblestones shone bright. A phonograph breathed soft refrains into the rainy night. The waiter stacked the little plates and turned the corner lamp. The velvet kept its patient warmth against our sleeves grown damp. You stirred the spoon, then set it by, and watched the street below. A teardrop trembled in your eye, but would not let me know, until the cups went cold. We let the rainy hour unfold, and kept the words we could not hold, until the cups went cold. The waiter brought the little tray and left the check with bread. The amber lamp made velvet play in blue and threads of red. You rose a little from your chair, then slowly sat once more. Outside the rain was everywhere. Inside, no one reached the door. The phonograph grew faint and small. A reverie came near. The rain made silver on the wall and held us longer here. No serenade came through the street, no violin took part. Only the waiter in retreat, and rain And then I knew what sorrow meant. Not thunder, loss, or blame, but staying past the time we spent, still warming one dear name. Until the cups went cold, we let the rainy hour unfold, and kept the words we could not hold. Until the cups went cold. At last you drew your gloves on slow. The rain had weakened gray. One pale ring kept a little glow, long after you went away. The rink had turned the windows white, the benches shone with cold, and every scarf along the rail was red or blue or gold. You stood behind the rental shelf with skates in numbered pairs, a pencil through your auburn hair, a mitten on the chair.
The children crossed the rubber mats with ankles stiff and proud. Their mothers called above the band, the bright brass music loud.
One little boy came limping back, his left foot pulled too sore. You knelt beside the wooden bench and said,
"One loop looser."
You did not laugh at how he frowned or hurry him along,
You eased the lace beneath your thumb
until the tight felt wrong.
One loop looser, that was all you gave.
Room enough for one small foot
To learn how to be brave.
One loop looser.
I watched him find the floor
And thought how gently care can hold,
by holding not so hard.
A girl spun twice and caught the rail.
A whistle clipped the air,
The coca cups went paper thin.
with steam above the stair.
You rubbed the blade with flannel once,
Then checked the buckle pin
and sent him toward the silver ink.
to try the turn again.
He fell before the second post.
Then rose without a cry,
You only raised your hand a bit.
as if to tell him why.
My own skates waited by the door, the leather cracked and worn,
But I stayed near the counter still
to watch the afternoon.
The band began a slower tune.
The lamps came on in rows
You tied another careful bow
and warmed your fingers close. One loop looser,
enough for pain
to leave a pair of eyes.
One loop looser,
The knot was still secure,
yet something in the way you tied
made winter less unsure.
Years may take the rink away,
The heater, rails and song,
the rented skates with painted marks,
the mittens left too long,
but not the lesson of your hands.
plain as a working rule.
What wishes to go farther must not be fastened cruel. One loop looser,
Softly at the start,
you gave the boy his balance back,
and never called it art.
one loop looser.
I see it now and then,
The kindest hold in all the world.
let someone move again.
The folding chairs are set in rows, the soup is keeping warm, and under stairs the basement pipes begin their little storm. You stand beside the kitchen shelf with steam along your sleeve, a pencil tucked behind your ear, too busy to believe. The enamel pans are cooling down, the ladles hang in pairs. A stack of plates waits near the door for whoever takes the stairs. You taste the broth and lower salt, then stir it once again, as if the whole cold neighborhood were coming in from rain. The boys bring chairs from Sunday school, the old men move them back. A woman folds the tablecloth along its printed crack. You open up the recipe box and find the card you need, written small in someone's hand for cabbage, cream and seed. You read the corner where it fades, then smile and close your eyes, and set the card back where it lives, among the cakes and pies. The card in the recipe box, soft at the edge from years of hands, told more than any silver dish of what a room understands. The card in the recipe box, not merely how much flour to take, but how to feed a winter hour and leave no one awake to ache. No one will praise the pencil mark, the thumbprint near the name, the little cross beside the word that says to lower flame. Yet every supper has a past that stands behind the steam. Somebody's measure, somebody's care, still entering the dream. The card in the recipe box, placed back between the bread and stew, held all the quiet hands before that somehow worked through you. The card in the recipe box, plain as paper, worn and small, yet when you closed the wooden lid, it seemed to bless us all. The supper bell is rung upstairs, the basement fills with feet, and in the box the old card rests, still warm from being read. The elephant house woke before the ticket gates were wide, with straw dust in the rafters high, and October kept inside. She came along the iron rail with apples in a pail. Her sleeves rolled back, her step so soft it hardly touched the scale. The younger ones were restless there, they swung their trunks for more. Their chains rang once against the posts, their shadows crossed the floor. But in the farthest corner stall, where morning entered late, the old one stood and waited still beside the wooden gate. Half an apple later, when the noise had passed, she saved the sweetest broken piece and gave the old one last. Half an apple later, no crowd, no call, no claim, only one hand remembering who answered to a name. The keeper checked the water trough, then brushed the rope aside. A school bell rang beyond the park, the city stretched outside. She split one apple with her thumb, where age had made it brown, then held it up with patient palm and never hurried down. The old one took it carefully, as if the world were thin. Her great gray head bent lower there and trusted what was in. No one was there to photograph, no child was there to see, only straw and iron hooks and one small courtesy. Half an apple later, soft beneath the rind, was not enough to fill the day, but more than being kind. Half an apple later, the house grew still and wide, and all that morning seemed to lean toward what she set aside. Some faith is made of larger things, of vows and bells and art, but some is kept in pails at dawn and carried part by part. The world may feed the young and bright and praise the quick parade, yet love is often what remains when something small is saved. The gate swung open, footsteps came, the children filled the sun, and in the corner, chewing slow, the old one kept that one. on window glass. The room was warm and blue. A phonograph began to sigh, as if the day were through. The velvet chair was set aside. The lamp was turned down low. Your apron slept upon its hook. The fire had lost its glow. You crossed the rug in slippered grace. I stood where I had stood, and all at once the little room went tender as it could. The starlight on the rug lay pale beneath our turning feet, and made the quiet evening sweet. The starlight on the rug. You said, my darling, not too fast, so softly with a smile, as if the years had only passed to bring us here a while. The record gave a little sigh. The curtains barely stirred, and all the things we did not say were sweeter left unheard. The pane held one small silver thread. The mantle kept its gold. A reverie moved through the room, more dear for growing old. No serenade came through the street, no grand occasion shone. Only your hand within my own, when all the day was gone. And then I knew how love can live without a trumpet's art. In one slow waltz, one quiet room, and starlight near the heart. The starlight on the rug lay pale beneath our turning feet, and made the quiet evening sweet. The starlight on the rug. The record thinned, the lamp burned low. The room grew soft and still, yet one faint patch of silver stayed, as if it always will. The serving glass had clouded white. The soup pans breathed below, and January filled the tracks with cinders, dusk, and snow. You stood behind the counter there, with steam along your hair. The enamel cups in crooked stacks, the rolls gone hard with air. A porter warmed his hands and left. A sailor asked for tea, and every spoon against a bowl rang small and separately. I ordered coffee just to stay, then held it much too long. The platform board said northbound 5 was nearly due and gone. You took your cloth and reached above the pansy's slow silver eyes, and wiped one circle in the glass, as if to clear my eyes. The steam on the glass, the steam on the glass, made all the room a little world the leaving could not pass. The steam on the glass, then one clear place shone through, and I could see the train outside, still waiting there for you. You counted change for 2 old men, then closed the biscuit tin. The kettle clicked beneath the shelf and settled down again. My ticket lay beside my cup, its corner damp and curled. A little paper permission to step out of that world. You asked if I would need a row. I said the ride was short. The loudspeaker coughed above the door and named my train and port. You did not tell me not to go or make the moment last. You only wiped the counter clean and did not look too fast. There are departures made with noise, with wheels and iron cars, and some begin in quiet rooms where steam climbs up the walls. I think I knew before I stood, before I touched my hat, that some clear places vanish first when breath comes back to glass. The steam on the glass, the steam on the glass, close softly where your hand had been before the minutes passed. The steam on the glass, no vow, no grand goodbye, only one circle fading there between the train and I. The northbound pulled beyond the shed. The refreshment room grew small, and in the window's whitening pane, your hand was gone from all.